In the previous lecture, you checked the definition of the Kubernetes pod for the REST API server. In this lab, you will create a REST API server in a Kubernetes pod. Reminder, please do the labs in sequence as they build on top of each other. Let's get started. You can find a PDF file with the full list of commands you will run under the resources attached to this lab. Please download this PDF file now and keep it handy to help you with typing the commands for this lab. Let's create the REST API pod. Launch your terminal and make sure you are in the directory Fibonacci sample/k8. Run the following command to create the pod using the specification in the backend-pod.yaml file. A pod has just been created that can compute the Fibonacci value for a number. The Fibonacci function is exposed as a REST API. To confirm that the pod is in a running state, run the following command to get a list of available pods. The pod is in a running state and the REST API server is available. The server is not exposed though, so we need to log into the server's container to test the REST API using the curl utility. Run the following command to access the bash shell of the container. Note that the prompt shows the name of the pod and that you are logged in using root, which is the default user in a container instance. Furthermore, please note that the host name has the same value as the pod name. You can verify this using the hostname command. Now test the REST API using the curl utility. Let's try to get the Fibonacci value for 8, which should come as 21. Type exit to return to the terminal of the host machine. We want to be able to reach the REST API from within the host machine's browser. Run the following command to expose the pod on the Kubernetes host machine. Let's make sense of the contents of this command. Specify the name of the pod that we want to expose. We know that a Flask server serves requests at port 5000 by default, so that is the port that we want to expose. Create a service that will expose the pod on the host machine of the Kubernetes node that hosts the pod. We will talk more about Kubernetes services in a later lab. For now, it is sufficient to know that a service type of node port is what we need here. Let's list the available services to identify which port on the host is mapped to the pod's port 5000. A service named Fibonacci backend pod has been created. Notice under ports we have 5000:32141. This tells us that the REST API is exposed on port 32141 on the host machine. Now you can open a browser on the host machine and invoke the REST API. Let's figure the Fibonacci value for 30. Launch this URL in your web browser. Remember, we are building an application. From now on, we will have a progress check of the application at the end of each lab. We will build something new every lab until we build the full application end to end. In this lab, you have created a REST API server in a Kubernetes pod and exposed the pod on the host using a Kubernetes NodePort Service. That's it for this lab. Thank you and see you in the next lecture.